Lesson 4, Economics, Class 12. Today we will continue with macroeconomics and complete Unit 6, which is banking. Now, what is the meaning of a bank? A bank is a financial institution which is engaged in borrowing and lending activities. It is a financial intermediary. But there are other financial institutions like insurance companies, mutual funds, etc. So, how is a bank different from other financial institutions? And the point is that banks' deposits are checkable and banks create money. Now, what do we understand by bank deposits are checkable? Checkable means withdrawal by writing a check. Banks allow their depositors, demand depositor, to withdraw their money by writing a check. Other financial institutions do not give this facility. How do banks create money? While other financial institutions do not, bank deposits are a part of money supply. Banks lend money to the borrower by opening demand deposits in their names. The borrowers are then free to use this money by writing checks. So, by creating additional demand deposits, banks create money while other financial institutions do not create money. So, how do we define a bank? It is a financial institution whose demand deposits are widely accepted as money for making payments, which have the power to create money. What is legal reserve ratio? Now, LRR is the fraction of deposits which the commercial banks have to compulsorily keep in the form of cash and liquid assets as reserves. There are two components of legal reserve ratio. The first one, statutory liquidity ratio, the fraction of deposits which banks are required to keep in the form of liquid assets, including cash within the bank itself. And the second, cash reserve ratio, the fraction of deposits that banks are required to keep with a central bank. How do commercial banks create money? Now, people deposit money in commercial banks. Banks forward loans from this deposit to the borrowers by creating a new demand deposit, which in turn becomes a part of money supply. Since the borrower can use the money in the way he likes by issuing a check, let's assume that the borrower spends the money on buying goods and services needed for investment and consumption. This adds to the revenue of the seller of these goods or services. The sellers might go and deposit the received amount in their demand deposit accounts with the commercial banks. For the commercial banks, these are new deposits. They use the money in these deposits to give more loans and create new demand deposits in the name of new borrowers. This process goes on till it reaches its limit decided by legal reserve ratio or reserve deposit ratio decided by the central bank. Now, why only a fraction of deposits are kept as cash reserves by the commercial banks? All the depositors do not approach the banks for withdrawal of money at the same time, and also they do not withdraw the entire amount in one go. Besides, there is a constant flow of new deposits into the bank. So, to meet the daily demands for withdrawal of cash, it is sufficient for banks to keep only a fraction of deposits as cash reserves. So, what is money multiplier? It is a multiple by which the deposits can increase due to an initial deposit, also called the deposit multiplier. It is determined by LRR. Its value is deposit multiplier is equal to 1 upon LRR. For example, if LRR is equal to 20%, then deposit multiplier is equal to 1 upon 0.2, which is equal to 5. So, if the initial deposit is rupees 1000, it will multiply and become 5000. So, let's see this with the help of a numerical example. Suppose the new deposit is rupees 1000 and LRR is 20%. It means that banks keep only rupees 200 as reserves and lend the entire 800 as loans. This is the first round of money creation and lend 80% of the initial deposit. The borrowers now spend rupees 800 on purchasing goods and services for investment and consumption. These sellers now receive rupees 800 and save it in their respective banks. The banks get new deposits. They keep 20% of rupees 800, that is 160 as reserves, and lend the remaining rupees 640. This is the second round of increase. These rounds go on till the increase becomes zero. If we see the sum total of all the deposits, we will automatically get rupees 5000. This is summed up in the following table. Now, the first column is showing us all the rounds. The second column is the deposits. The third is the loan, and the fourth are the reserves. Now you can see from round number 1, 2, 3 how the deposits have been either loaned or kept as reserves. And when we total up the entire amount in the end, the initial deposit of rupees 1000 now becomes 5000 and the loans become 4000 and the reserves become 1000. So from this we can see that 4000 plus 1000 is equal to 5000. So the initial deposit of 1000 is multiplied by 5 to become 5000 if legal reserve ratio is 20%. So with this we will come to the end of lesson number 4 and we will move on to lesson number 5, in which the remaining part of the chapter will be explained.